Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank CNBC and Monster for giving KPMG this opportunity to come and present some of our thoughts. I'm not a qualified HR person, so forgive me if I say some statements here. You can kill me after this talk, but I do have a point of view because I am being part of the system. One sees how HR operates, and my personal love and passion for people drive me to do certain things which maybe partly seem as HR. The first thing I think we heard the speaker say, we heard Mr. Singh say about an employee walks, your asset, your main asset, walks out every evening, you have to ensure that he comes back. It's such a true statement. If we look at our attrition rate that all of us go through, or most organizations go through in a developing country like India, or in a growing country like India, I think it's a huge challenge. I don't think many of us have ever sat down and ever calculated what is that cost of that employee leaving. We're very happy somebody's gone, now we get another employee in, but what is that cost of that employee leaving? If somebody sits down and calculates that cost, I think we make sure that that employee doesn't leave as quickly as he leaves today. I mean, having attrition today in certain industries at 50, 60%, 30%, it's completely very difficult because you can just look at an organization, every 3 to 4 years it's a new organization. You're completely churning the workforce, and with the systems and processes we have on knowledge management, etc., we know where we stand. It's a challenge every time. And I think we need to look and say, how do we address some of these issues? As I was walking into this hotel, actually this hall, I know she introduced me as the CEO of KPMG. I've just become the CEO 5 days back. It was on Sunday in this very hall that I got appointed. And so it was a nostalgic as I was walking to that hall, not knowing what was happening on that morning of that Sunday, to that evening when the announcement was made, just brought back some memories to me. I just thought I'd share it with you because it was a moment, a good moment for me personally, and I just thought I'll speak about it. I think, like I said, for me, it's it's the love of people that drives me to do certain things. And when I look back at HR, and the one thing which I had come earlier also and spoken to this at this conference last year, and at that point of time I said, is HR truly connected with people? Is HR run by processes and has lost the human element or the human touch? 1 year later, I come back and say the same thing. And I come here and ask you all to reflect on this. Have we become so process oriented that we have forgotten that at the other end of that stick is a human being who's a living human being who can think, act, and has emotions? Do we have any emotional connect with that individual? Because if we do have an emotional connect, we would be able to reach out to him, and we may have dealt in a different way than what we deal in a normal case. And I think that's one point I think you should reflect upon in your deliberations as you go through the day. I really like this topic, and now that I've taken on my new role, it's always running an optimized organization. But when we talk of optimized organization, the first name that comes to mind is the CFO, because he's the guy who's cutting costs, cutting everything. And I was sitting the other day in our own organization and we were saying, okay, we got to cut down these costs, and there were various items listed there, and one item was training. I said, training is a cost. I thought training was an investment. And I think these are some points that we should all look at and say, and I was so pleased to read in today's Economic Times front page that even in this downturn, people are not cutting down on training cost. And I think that's very, very important, because when people look at cost and investment, there's a very thin defining line, but those investments get your engine fired up to actually take you to the next level. I was reading a story on Steve Jobs, and I thought I'll just relate it out here. Steve Jobs had started a company called Apple, and this is the first time when he first started Apple. And he found this guy, very bright vice president, young vice president at PepsiCo, which was a large corporation, John Scully. And he was wanted to hire him as the CEO of Apple Computers in the first time. So he had an interaction with John, and 1 hour into the conversation, John was not biting. And so Steve Jobs looks at him in the eyes and says, John, do you want to sell sugared water all your life, or do you want to create history? You know what happened? John Scully bit. He joined Apple. The first thing he did was fire Steve Jobs. But Steve Jobs came back, and the rest is history. We heard about Sanjay talking about intellectual capital. I think it's so true. If you look at the two most valuable companies today in the world, Apple and Microsoft. Apple 650 billion, Microsoft some 500 million approximately. You take that and compare that to the India stock market. The India entire index is 1.3 trillion. Two companies which don't have assets other than intellectual capital are valued at almost 1 trillion. And there's the entire India stock market with all its assets valued at 1.3 trillion. This shows where intellectual capital is. And today the world is changing. As the world is changing, so are the people changing. The people that you hire today don't have the same work ethos, don't have the same way to work. We have to know how we can relate with this new generation which is coming in. What do they want? What is driving them? Because, see, if a person doesn't have passion or love for the job, there is no way you're going to get them to do something more than what they are doing. So what is it that drives people? And I think that's why HR needs to come up and say, do we truly understand the business in which we work in? Do we truly understand what drives that organization in which I work? If HR is able to understand that, they will be able to understand the kind of people they need to recruit. Because the problem starts at the recruitment stage. If you are able to recruit right, then you have retention strategies. For example, so many companies have these reward programs. I'll give you an example in our own organization, because why go further? I mean, when you talk of something, we have a reward program where various rewards given by different people, partners can give some reward, somebody else. One of the partners wanted to give a reward to an employee done an excellent job. HR told them you can't give it. Why? Because this reward can only be given by the director, who's one level lower than the partner. But this partner is saying, this person has done a great job, I just want to give it because I felt happy that they have done it. They said, no, our process doesn't allow you. So if you want to give this reward to this individual, give it in the name of a director. But why do you want to give it in the name of a director? I want to give it to him. So I think somewhere along the line, and then when you look and say, all these reward programs we have, do they actually touch that person? Because if you have a reward program, and if ultimately your KPI for that reward is, how many rewards have I given in the year, you can be rest assured, you will not have a very happy workforce. Because what would have happened, you would have given the reward to the good person, and you would have given the reward to the not so good person, because there's somebody taking a KPI out there, and yeah, I was asked to give 50 rewards in the whole year, I've given 51. So I've actually exceeded my expectations. So I think somewhere along the line, we have to move between real. And if we touch people in reality, if we touch people in a real way, I'm telling you the kind of loyalty, and I can tell you in my last so many years of working experience, where while I've not done HR, actually I've taken part in being a very active role along on people's side, and I've found that the more you reach out to people and touch them, you would get their loyalty, and they would come and work for you. And I think that's when you go and have the real touch with people, because if you don't have that real touch with people, it will not work. The other thing which, I'm not saying all of you, I'm just giving you some examples. Do you build trust with the employees? Do people trust you? Because if they did trust you, they would open up with you. Today, I'm a line manager. I'm sitting there running my workforce. I have a certain relationship with the people who work with me, but they need an independent forum where they can go and talk their heart out. Even say that I want to leave the organization. And they know that it will be kept at that level. Because what you would do, you would counsel them and tell them, oh, maybe it's good. If it's good, let them move on. I mean, if it's a great offer, I think let's not tell a lie to somebody that you cannot look at him or her in the eye at the end of the year and say, I gave you a wrong decision. But you get that opportunity to counsel. And whenever HR is able to build that level of trust with their people, they will come back. And they will open up. And then you become that first, because most times what happens is the line function gets in when it's too late. The guy's already gone for the interview, he's accepted the job, and now it's too late to actually get him back. But if you can get him in him or her in the very initial stage, you may have saved that day for that employee. I think that is something that HR should actually work towards, of saying, how do I reach out to these employees and actually get them back? Because that would mean that you will have to show fairness, you'll have to show honesty in the way you deal with them. And if you can show honesty and fairness, I think everything is done. We keep talking about values, all of us, we have our ethics code, we have our values, we may have various things going on. They seem to be items which lie on various screensavers, or it doesn't actually get lived. And it needs to get lived by the leadership. And that's where I think you are the people who can tell leadership that you want people to live these values, you better live it yourself. Because if there's a value of an organization, if today I go and tell somebody, listen, we need some work ethics in this place. I want people to come on time and you work, because the kind of work pressure we work under in consulting, it's crazy, the hours you keep. And I tell somebody, yeah, we need some work ethics. And if I myself stroll into the office at 11 o'clock in the morning, what have I achieved? Do I have the moral right to go and tell an employee, come at 9 o'clock or whatever time the office starts? I can't. And that's when HR needs to come and be honest. I was very fortunate in one of my earlier organizations when I had the HR function also to look after overall. The HR person who used to work with me used to come back and tell me things which I may not like to hear. But it was important because he would correct me and tell me that this is the right. He said, you take your business decision, but let me tell you from HR point of view, this is wrong what you're doing. That really helped you take the right decision. Because at the end of it, no business leader would like to take a decision which will impact the workforce. So never be afraid. And that's when you need a very open work environment where you can sit and discuss issues, because it is issues about people. 30%, 40% attrition, who wants it? Who wants that cost on attrition? So I think any business leader worth his salt will listen to you if you tell them that this is the right thing to do, and they will do it keeping the business point in mind. I was reading a speech, while I was preparing for this elections for this year, reading a speech, that's the time you actually go back. One of the greatest speeches, I would say, which I have read on leadership. It's a very long speech, let me tell you. So if you're not in the habit of reading, get it put on your iPad or somewhere and read it when you can. But in that, he said the biggest challenge, 1998, the biggest challenge in this country is leadership. 2012, I stand up and say the biggest challenge in this country is leadership. It's not about country, it's about leadership that we have within corporate, the leadership that we have in the country, the leadership that we have all around. There's a huge leadership vacuum. We have seen wherever organizations have great leaders, that organization has thrived. It has not only thrived, but it has prospered. Because that one leader is that glue, that force which actually gets people bound to actually move to different levels. And I think the point is, the one big challenge that you people in the HR need to put together is, how do I create a leadership pipeline? How do I create a pipeline of leaders? How do I ensure that after this set of leaders who are currently there move on, that there is anybody can be hit by a bus any day and he's gone. I mean, today the guy is there fully fit and something happens. So how are we ensuring that there is enough leadership built up in the organization that if anybody leaves, there is no issue? I think that is another point that you may want to consider while developing policies for your company, because what happens generally, if we find, is people get promoted on competency. Technically good, he or she moves up. At a certain stage, a bigger skill is required, that is people management skill. And at that point of time, you find these individuals lacking in it. And then what would you say? Is it a failure of that individual? Is it a failure of the firm, the organization, which could have done something to hone up those skills? So I think learning and development, building that leadership pipeline is very, very important. It's important to know that in one of the leading consulting organizations, not KPMG of course, the CEO suddenly realized that he had a lack of leadership talent in the firm. And this is a global organization, mind you, one of the very large consulting firms. So what he did, he pulled out his most high-performing partner and he put her on this job of building the leadership talent. Because he believed that leadership talent needs to be built right from when that employee joins, not just at the end, right from when. So they put in a program right from when an employee joins, right up their career, how do you actually build this leadership talent? And I think this would be something that you may want to consider in your deliberations. I know we just heard about the program, it looks very exciting, very interesting. In fact, this topic is a little, I would say, very thought-provoking, because I don't think HR ever deals with optimized organization. You keep hearing of workforce optimization, maybe one part of it, but maybe I wish you all the best in your deliberations and have a great day. Thank you.